All right, welcome everybody to bringing your data into the modern era on the cloud. I'm joined today by two of our partners, both Clean Data and PwC. We have Mark Budzinski, who's the CEO with Clean Data, and John Simmons, who's a principal at PwC, to talk a little bit about the implementation side of data in the cloud and why this has been such a long journey, and we're still talking about whether or not to go to the cloud. So, Mark, John, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for inviting us.
My pleasure.
Absolutely. Excellent. So let's dive right in. So here we are, 3 decades into talking about cloud migration in different flavors. Why do you think this is still a subject of so much discussion and dissension and debate? We're still talking about whether or not it's good to go to the cloud when, all of these hyperscalers have pretty clearly showed us that moving to the cloud is a real boon. Maybe Mark, I'll start with you. You've got kind of the strategic level as CEO, seeing the from bang to bullets in an organization like yours. Why are we still talking about cloud?
Well, it's in vogue for sure. In part, it's driven by media and analysts and what have you. But I think my view is the journey has long legs because this idea of having centralized or decentralized access to data is something that's gone on well before the internet was around and became popular, right? I remember in the early 90s there were these things called externals. So that the idea that turned into thin client, fat client, no, I want all my stuff on a PC. Oh, whoops, we've got all these PCs in the corporation. Now we've got a management problem. I think we've had this give and take and back and forth for a long time. And frankly, as the cloud debate got underway 15 years ago, in earnest, in my opinion, I thought it was going to be more floppy. I thought it was going to be to and fro. But now that it's become pretty obvious that the benefits of going cloud are clear, they're obvious, and the concerns that have been on the table for years. Well, the migration might be hard. I'm not sure the data is going to be secure. How am I gonna be sure that if there's a disaster, you guys actually have my app and my data taken care of? So these concerns have largely been resolved, in my opinion. So what we're left now is it's almost like the chaos that's been created by almost too much access to the cloud. It's a little too easy to fire up an instance of Snowflake or BigQuery to download a copy of DBT, whatever. And so there's almost like this other set of problems that's emerged, right? We've almost got too much chaos. So some of the CDOs are like, whoa, let's slow down before we go all in on cloud. Let's make sure we have our act together when it comes to basic governance. So it's a to and fro game, I think, and an exciting one, that's for sure.
Yeah, and John, how about you? Now, I know PwC, you've got myriad clients across the spectrum, so you should have a pretty good view into, who's doing what and why. So, what is your view into this in terms of cloud migration?
You're sure. I think Mark opened it up really well. I think that all that has been true, but the dialogue is starting to change now. And I think that in a sense, I'd almost change your positioning of the question. I actually think, it has been a long journey, a long period of acceptance, and but in this moment, in the last year and a half, I've seen a lot more willingness to drive more deliberately towards the cloud. I do think that some of that is coming from a an actual drive, an imperative to build a more digital infrastructure and capability. But what's been holding companies back is the amount of change that would involve. And not all of it is the technology. Some of it is the culture. Some of it is the organizational structure. My good friends at CISR, the organization at MIT, they studied architecture as a reflection of organization structure, and I think this is a instance where that has played out organizationally. Um, Many organizations thrive on accountability, lines of control, and delineation of where assets are built, controlled, and managed, and that flows into data, that flows into um, customer experiences and things of this nature. And as you digitize, there's a lot more there's more questions involving who controls access to environments, controls access to the ability to scale. What does it mean to scale in an automatic fashion, and so forth? All these are questions that a digital transformation and a cloud underpinning start to open up and really challenge an organization to adopt a different way of thinking about the enterprise overall. So it's not just the technology, it's, I believe, the organizational structures, the organizational sort of legacy um, way of organizing and controlling things that has gotten in the way over time. But that's changing
So
dramatically.
it's always about the people, isn't it, John? At the end of the day, right?
Y-
It's the people. Uh,
Yep,
Well,
yep.
it's that Zhamak Dehghani data mesh approach, right? It's people, process, and technology in equal parts, right? And I think that's going to be a real big key, just based on what both of you have said. And I think, let's dive a little deeper on that actually. So, as an integrator, when you're going into these organizations that might be looking at some sort of a data modernization or cloud readiness, what are the sorts of things that you're doing to sort of assess their cloud readiness or expansion into more of their process being reliant on the cloud? Like, there's an organization that's considering a move of their infrastructure to the cloud. What are going to be the key indicators that that's the right thing or the wrong thing, or where are you going to be sort of hyper aware along this process? John, we'll start with you, the man on the street here. I kind of love it that we've got the guy in the studio and the guy in the street. This is perfect.
Literally, with everything going on behind. So it's a great, really important question, and a great one. Really, it's about adoption and optimization. I, if I see an organization that is moving to the cloud because they want to capture cost advantage, or they're trying to, improve the unit cost of IT delivery and things of that nature, that's a huge red flag to me. It's a red flag on many levels. Some of it goes back to what I said before, and some of the things that Mark was referring to. Um, but really, we're looking for organizations that have thought through the real uh, enterprise strategic reasons why they want to go to the cloud, how that relates again back to whether it's a digital imperative or an ability to leverage assets more seamlessly across different BUs, product experiences, customer experiences, what have you. Knowing what that is and thinking strategically how that links to your technology infrastructure overall, that's a very, very important place to start. Because if you're not thinking that way, you're going to jump into the cloud. It ultimately will just lead to not cost efficiency, but really more another environment that you have to manage, have to link back into your legacy environments, which are not going to go away overnight, and it's just going to increase complexity before it simplifies things. So there has to be another reason beyond that. If that's not there, simply, Patrick, we would recommend our clients to rethink and reconsider their strategy. So
Yeah, and
that's
I
really it.
love yeah, and I love the parallels between sort of the modernization of data process and sort of the cloudishness, if you will. Both of them require sort of a cultural buy-in, and I think that's really important. Mark, sort of in the CEO's chair, like, is there anything else that you're thinking about, sort of organizationally or from a business context, to add to that? Like, what are the things that Clean Data looks at on that same sort of spectrum?
Well, I think like PwC or anybody else that has a client relationship, you're going to see many of the same patterns. I wouldn't personally take the cost agenda as a red flag. I thought that was an interesting choice of words, and in some cases, it may be the case, right? But I think for me, it's more of a confessional. It's almost like an indicator that says, you know what, I'm sick and tired of spending so much money managing these systems, managing these servers, paying for all these DBAs. Things break. I have to upgrade from Oracle 7.13 to 7.14. That just broke 14 reports. You know, all this sort of real life chaos that comes from that. And it's like, you know, we're spending so much money on that. Can we just use the cloud as a cost reduction strategy? And I would say, rather than red flag, let's call it a different color, you know, yellow or something, that basically said, okay, you're on the right track here, but it's not a cost reduction. It's an investment strategy. So if at the end of the day, we're trying to maximize our return in the money and the resources that we put into a data strategy, certainly cleaning up some of this technical debt or some of this, you know, on-prem boat anchor kind of cost that we have is, I think, is a worthy and, you know, certainly valid point of view. But it's almost like an enlightenment thing, John, is the way I think about it. And you probably go through the same process with your customers, right? It's like, okay, turning this cost center into an investment opportunity is the key segue. And if we can do that in such a way that says, now that I'm cloud oriented, it's not just a matter of quote unquote migrating my on-prem to a cloud. It's like, okay, what did you really do other than save some costs in your DBA costs? But what became possible when it came to access from all of these cloud-based tools, to be able to access data from my phone, you know, things that are very difficult to do, if not impossible, in these historic, almost dinosaur sort of on-prem environments over the last 40 years that, you know, I'm sure you see it as well, still persist to some degree. So I'm not trying to pick a fight with you as much as I see this sort of confessional that says we've got a cost agenda as like, okay, that's a good place to start. But unless there's enlightenment, and it may literally be they don't know what they don't know, right? Because the flip side is you have some exec, CFO, CEO that comes back from a trip and goes, you know, these cloud thingies, we need one of those cloud thingies. I've been talking to people and they don't really have a great comprehension of what it means, other than it's in vogue. It's you know, it's getting a lot of press. They have this FOMO fear. Everybody else is doing it and I'm not doing it. What's wrong with us? Hey, CIO, hey, CDO, why aren't we moving to the cloud more briskly, right? So this idea of everybody calm down and look at it as a more balanced approach where cost reduction, important, but getting this return on investment for ultimately business impact, but also have a sustainable architecture for, you know, for governance, at least at a basic level, is I think, huge.
Just to make the point, I wouldn't pick a fight, because my point was that it's a red flag if that's the reason why they're going. So I think your point about it being a confessional, and that really it's got to be a blend of things. Maybe if there is a fight, it's just that I've never seen. I can say that with confidence. I've never seen a client go to the cloud and achieve a cost savings agenda in and of itself. That could be a strategic thing as they really take advantage of native cloud services, but that's a very, you know, extended journey.
Yeah, what I love about the transition that customers go through as they get enlightened is you go from this sort of fixation on data infrastructure, right? Because that's where the on-prem stuff really lives. There's this emphasis on the systems, the capacity, the security, all the stuff that it's like this emphasis on the infrastructure. And, you know, hey, you business people, just put your requests in through the trap door and we'll deliver value from data. But really our emphasis is around infrastructure. So when the cloud movement basically says, no, the emphasis is not on that anymore. It's on the data itself, right? It's on what people can do with it. That's when kind of, to me, everything changes. And once you have that aha moment, it's like, wow, everything becomes possible. Until you have that aha moment, I think you're right. You're dealing with this, you know, cost only paradigm, which is, you know, at the end of the day, not very fulfilling.
All right. So from that, like, let's take a look at this through the lens of maybe one of the detractors, right? Talk to me about data, specifically in the cloud. Maybe not data as the end result, but data as sort of the the roadside casualty potentially of some of these applications moving into the cloud. Like, there's a ton of momentum that's going towards distributed data ownership and collaboration, right? We brought up the data mesh concept in particular. What sorts of things does an organization need to think about around data residency, data security, data sharing and access, other things, by having their stuff in the cloud? And they're having to build new muscle memory. They're having to build new, technology pathways and new processes, and potentially have some of these things alter their organization a big way. What are the sorts of things you're thinking about? And we'll start with Mark,
Okay.
and we'll go back to John.
Yeah, very good. I didn't want to step on any due process there. You raised a lot of issues between commas, data security, comma, 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 and I think of it more maybe just as a priority thing. I think the biggest issue that we run into time and time again that needs to be resolved is what you would sort of call data quality at a cheeky level, or that would be the term you would just throw out. But it kind of goes deeper than that, right? So if we have access to data and access to uses of data in terms of the way it's aggregated and the way it's derived and it's reused and it's reloaded and it's reused somewhere else, who put it there? What does it mean? Is it when I say margin and John says margin, are we talking about the same margin, or does he mean contributed margin and I mean some other accounting term? All perfectly valid, right? But this idea that we start driving our business, wow, we're a data savvy organization, we're in the cloud now, we got all this technology, people are fired up. But are we going to meetings and arguing between sales and marketing about whose data is right? Are we making flawed decisions based on data that is in fact pulled from someplace that we don't really understand where it came from and why it was there, and maybe it's the wrong thing? So I'm not sure data quality is the right word, but it's the closest one I can come up with, right? This idea that you have integrity around what you're actually doing. So if the focus is on the data and the people that are utilizing the data, whether it be to understand history, understand the present, or forecast and take action based on the future, wow, we got to understand collectively what that is, right? So so things like data catalogs, for example, are wildly important. But collaboration process, the way that history data is taken care of, the fact that you've got data lineage. So where did this thing come from? Where did it go? All very important things, and it's a little slippery because it's easy to get caught up in the in this sort of panacea of we all have access to data now. Like I've got my little DPT instance on a sandbox and I'm doing my thing as a data science professional, and you're over on the other side of the building doing something related, maybe something identical, using different data in a different way, maybe using the same data in a different way. You see the point, right? You've just got this turbulence that ultimately has to be managed, and I think that's number one. I almost take security and some of these other things for granted, but I think the one that we're seeing in our client base, and our client base obviously is not as big as PwC's, right? We've got dozens of clients, not hundreds or thousands, but the themes are very consistent when it comes to this turbulence created by by sort of the winds of data all over the building.
So if I could jump in quickly, I think Mark, you've done a wonderful job of framing it. My way of expressing what you said is that it really puts an emphasis on knowing your data, and there's a quality dimension of that, but it's just literally understanding where the data is, what data you have, and then how your teams are using the data. Those elements. When you were on premise, there was a physical place where your data is today still probably, and I could have physical security. I could have ways to contain that data that weren't reliant on a third-party provider hosting it, and a number of controls that I have to train my staff and architects to understand and be mindful of. So that lack of or change rather in the physicality of where my data is a significant shift, and I think it really raises something that has always been at the surface or maybe just beneath the surface, and that is knowing your data, where it is, what it is, and who's using it, and for what purpose. And with cloud, it really puts those questions at the center. So things like data catalogs become that much more critical. Capabilities like automated data lineage and metadata management, and then model management and governance of models. And that's not just data models, but also the analytic models that sit on top of it. That whole value chain of data becomes much more critical. And it goes back to one of our earlier points. It becomes back to organization, structure, people, process. That, how are you using these new capabilities and ensuring your security and the strategic use of your assets.
So do you see the evolution from what used to be, on the one side of the tennis net were the IT guys that were responsible for managing data, and on the other side of the tennis net were the business people who were trying to consume it, analyze it, use it. And it's almost like we've torn the net down. And those that are responsible for the technology and the infrastructure, is now we're moving into the cloud, have to become a lot more business savvy. And what you're suggesting is that the business people have to almost become more data savvy. You used to just say, well, the data's not right, bring up some IT guy, they need to fix that for us, right? Where now there's this concept of we're all in this together. The business people have to own their data, the IT staff, if we can call it that, the data, the data honk engineer guys, they have to be more business savvy. The net has been torn down.
It's a great analogy, great image. I agree.
Perfect. And I think that's actually a great place to wrap it here. Unfortunately, we're at the end of our time, but hey, if anyone here would like to continue the conversation, obviously, Mark at Clean Data or John at PwC, or obviously the folks here at Data.World would be helpful in helping to continue this conversation within your own organizations. But John, Mark, thank you very much for joining me. It's been a great panel. And unfortunately, we've reached the end too soon, but I look forward to chatting more with you both.
Thank you, Patrick. Likewise. Take care.
I'm Liza Madden, Customer Success Director for Data.World. Today, I'm here to announce the Parliament Award winner for our cloud data migration solution. And our winner is the leading provider of investment and business solutions for independent financial advisors across the US. We're working primarily with the IT team at this organization, responsible for their data migration strategy. Their current infrastructure is complex, and there are a lot of interdependencies. The team is trying to intelligently migrate the data ecosystem to a more modern deployment. That team will use our platform, Data.World, to understand and catalog their data environment and be strategic with mitigation and migration plans. So pleased to be sharing this award with this organization. They've been a tremendous partner, and we're excited about working with them going forward.